Hi, I'm Benji Hardy, and I've got your Arkansas Times News headlines for Friday, May 8th. Let's start by talking about the Little Rock School District. Last night at a PTA meeting at Rockefeller Elementary, teachers and parents heard from LRSD Superintendent Baker Curris for the first time. Curris was appointed to the position by Education Commissioner Johnny Key this Tuesday. He appeared before the Rockefeller PTA with Associate Superintendent Marvin Burton to announce that plans will not be moving forward to reorganize that school as were originally announced by former Superintendent Dexter Suggs last month. When Suggs announced those plans, it caused a lot of outcry since Rockefeller has a widely successful early childhood program and is one of the better performing elementaries on that side of the city. Parents were upset, teachers were upset, and especially people were upset about the lack of inclusivity that announcement had provoked. So last night's announcement that the plans will be rolled back was met with applause by parents and teachers. Seems to signal a change in tone from the district that the new superintendent would like to project to be more inclusive, even a little conciliatory. He said he apologized for the way that those plans were handled a couple months ago and that was wrong. Most people I spoke to last night at the meeting seemed cautiously optimistic about Baker Curris, but let's put the emphasis on caution. Some parents who were against the takeover itself said that they were encouraged by his words, but they also realized that the big questions of substance, such as how to deal with the coming budget crisis within the LRSD when the district loses its desegregation money next year, those have yet to be resolved. There's also concerns about the fact that Curris's appointment was essentially by fiat from Education Commissioner Key, the head of the State Department of Education, with no advanced discussion and no solicitation of community input. State Senator Joyce Elliott really put that well in a Facebook post earlier this week. There just seems to be an ongoing tone deafness on the part of the Department of Education about the fact that people in the Little Rock School District feel that their voices are not being heard. Now, Curris, another point of contention, Curris is a lawyer and a businessman, not an educator. He's a smart guy. Everyone agrees he's local and he knows the Little Rock School District very well, having been on the school board for many years in the past, but he has never taught in a classroom, and so the requirements had to be waived in order for him to be placed into that position. But last night's meeting, when he appeared with Associate Superintendent Burton, seemed to project a message that perhaps is going to be relying on other administrators with more educational experience. So we'll have to see whether he behaves as inclusively as he has so far suggested in his rhetoric. Meanwhile, opponents of the state takeover, including civil rights attorney John Walker and former LRSD board members such as Joyce Springer and Jim Ross, continue to say that the takeover is illegitimate. They engaged in a protest today at the State Department of Education. They continue to demand that schools be returned to local control. Shifting gears, let's talk also a little bit about Mike Huckabee. His announcement earlier this week continues to attract national attention. Several articles of interest in Slate, Salon, and the National Journal recently. And much of that conversation is focused on Huckabee's semi-populist economic message, which seems so out of place in the contemporary GOP, considering how much most Republicans have this relentless anti-government spending mantra. Mike Huckabee talked in his presidential announcement speech on Tuesday a lot about preserving Social Security and Medicare. So he seems to be marrying this sort of social conservatism, which is his brand, especially his animus towards gay folks, with a tendency to protect certain social safety net programs. The writer Jamel Bowie at Slate calls this a sort of welfare state conservatism. This is interesting, and it is rather unique in the current Republican field, but also keep in mind that to Huckabee's core demographic, which are older, white, rural, evangelical voters, it's a fairly safe bet to talk about defending Social Security on the one hand and then protecting conservative values on the other hand. That makes him something of a target to groups like the Club for Growth that are more economically conservative, but it allows him also to talk about some of his rivals. It'll be interesting to see if he goes after Jeb Bush in the same way that he sort of went after Mitt Romney back in 2008 for being too wealthy and too out of touch. Finally, let's give a quick plug for a couple of stories that would be good weekend reading that appeared in the Times recently. John Kirk's cover story on Winthrop Rockefeller in this week's Times discusses the Republican governor's economic moderation, his history with the institution that is now the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and his complicated relationship with Orville Faubus. Really interesting read. It's about Rockefeller's opposition to segregation, which made him a lot more progressive than Democrats of the time, such as Faubus, of course. Second, I suggest you check out Mara Leverett's reporting from Ashdown about the retrial of Tim Howard, and that's on the Arkansas blog. Howard is a man on death row who's being retried for the 1997 murder of a couple and the attempted murder of their child. It's a long, twisting, strange story about drugs, about race, about compromised evidence, and the judicial system in Arkansas. So check it out. It's interesting reading. We'll be back here next week with more headlines.